everybody, and welcome back to the Pro Chess League. I'm Alexandra, and I'm joined today by the amazing co-commentator, International Master Anna Rudolph. Hi, Anna.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Alex. I am so excited about today's Pro Chess League and so excited to be sitting next to you virtually.
Virtually, although it looks like it's close. Oh, sorry, there's a game in the background. My bad. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Anna.
It's been ages since we streamed together. I was trying to recall when was the last time that we hit Twitch front page with our hand and brain games against Hikaru. I think it was at least half a year ago, but it's just way too long.
Yeah, definitely been way too long, but the best reunion is to be here doing commentary on the Pro Chess League. The Atlantic Division today is going to be really exciting, and I'm just going to pull up the standings very quick so we could see all of the divisions. Anna, what are you excited to see today in the matchup?
Oof, today in the Atlantic, the first place team, Webster Windmills, is facing the former leader, the Montreal Chess Bros. I think that's the match we are going to be focusing on mainly. But of course, we cannot forget about the St. Louis Archbishops with world number 2, Fabiano Caruana on board 1, and the US number 2, Wesley So on board 2. So I think the match between the Windmills and the Chess Bros and the match of the Archbishops versus the Marshalls will be our two main focuses.
Yep, I agree. I'm excited to see what's going to be happening in those games. Chat, if you guys have a preference for who you're rooting for, let us know. The games will be shortly. We can chat a little bit in the meantime.
Yeah, let's just create some hype in the chat as well. I see you guys are joining. Shout out to, of course, everyone being so early. We are just about to witness the first moves in today's matches in the Atlantic Division. This is week 5. The Battle Royale has really shook up the standings. So the Chess Bros, for instance, who started with 3 team victories, it looked like the Chess Bros are on their way to beat each and every other team. But now, for instance, they are back to the 3rd place because the Battle Royale has given more points to the teams that did very well in the Battle Royale, such as the Windmills. They basically doubled their points in the Battle Royale. They were in the middle of the field before last week's matches. So it's incredible how the standings have changed so drastically with the Battle Royale format, the round robin that we witnessed last week. And I can't wait to see these two top teams, Windmills versus Chess Bros. What is it going to bring? What are you most excited about, Alex?
I think you've been creating the hype in the correct way. I'm excited to see if the teams that didn't do so well during the Battle Royale, but they were leading the pack, the Chess Bros, are going to be able to come back during this matchup. I think we have some really strong teams and top players playing, so that will be the most exciting part for me, as well as seeing how the board 4 underdogs are doing. That's been one of my favorite parts of the season.
Yeah, so true. And I see in the chat that some of you are pointing out that Ivan Sharch is back on board 1 for the Chess Bros, which is important since he has been the MVP of the Canadian team. So definitely it's important that their board 1, their usual board 1, is back.
Yes.
I think the games have just started.
Okay, let me just make sure that I see them.
I thought they have started, but I don't see them yet.
Yeah, I don't see them yet. They should be starting in a minute, though. So almost there.
In a minute.
Almost there. They're preparing. They have a couple minutes left to get ready here.
So many fans of the Chess Bros are here with us in the chat. And of course, the Pro Chess League Commissioner Greg Shahade is here as well. Greg, this time I'm going for you. 10K for the winner who has managed to come up with the dream team, the fantasy chess competition that Greg Shahade has created together with the Pro Chess League. And I'm very confident that this time I'm going to win the $10,000 that are at stake.
You were talking a little bit about fantasy before we started the commentary because you're known to be very good at picking teams since you have all the stats on the players.
Yeah, I thought I used to be good at it, but last time I tried, I performed so poorly that I was basically at the very bottom of the standings. This time I'm bringing my A game on. I'm telling Greg that he has to prepare the 10K in donuts because I'm claiming my prize in donuts.
In donuts. Okay, well, that seems like the best type of prize, so at least we know you have good taste.
I was just thinking what would hurt Greg the most, and I think if he has to pay the price in donuts, that's even more painful to our commissioner, who is very well known for his love for pastry, especially the rounded shaped ones.
Yeah, I feel like that would definitely take a dent on his diet if he had to prepare 10,000 donuts, you know, snacking a little bit at the same time. So the game's just started very early, on time. We have 4 games so far between the Pittsburgh Pawn Grabbers and the London Lions.
Let's start with Romain Edouard, who is the top board of the Lions. He's playing with the black pieces against Mark Hyman. As you guys know, in the Pro Chess League, the usual matches are, it's 4 players versus 4 players. Then the first round is the first board, the top board of each team plays against board 4 of the other team. So we see Romain Edouard with 26-46, very strong grandmaster from France, facing a 2300 FIDE master, Mark Hyman. And he was going to play the Najdorf, but bishop b5 check is a way to deviate from the main lines of the Najdorf, knight d7, and then a capture on d7. Queen takes d7 is really interesting, and one would wonder why to take back with the queen, but this bishop, the c8 bishop, is heading toward b7 after b5.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like they've been making these moves very quickly, so potentially it is part of their preparation here. I like that you pointed out the idea that black is actually going to switch the bishop over to b7, so clearly he's not being blocked by the queen here. And the queen is helping with the f5 push.
Yeah, although I've just realized that he has pushed e5 and f5 since, so this is a different idea for placing the queen on d7, that he can go for this early f5, which is really interesting. It completely changes the pawn structure. Now this e4 pawn disappears, queen takes f5. And I always wonder, like, no, knight f6 is I was going to say that queen takes f5. I don't like that later white can play knight d5. So queen takes f5, queen takes, bishop takes knight d5. So knight f6 is more precise. So
you didn't like queen takes f5 because of knight d5?
Yeah.
Right, because it's pointing towards f7. Okay, awesome. So back to what you were saying. After knight f6, knight h4.
Indeed. So now that black is guarding the d5 square, he was about to take on f5, but white prevents it with knight h4. We all know that the knights are not well placed on the rim, but for now, white is a pawn up. So it's going to be a battle between whether this pawn can be captured later on, the f5 pawn, whether black can attack this h4 knight, so to chase away the knight and then capture the pawn, or will just simply white sit on the pawn up. For now, it's material advantage. And what black has is some kind of an initiative after bishop e7, castle kingside, and the idea of attacking the h4 knight with a knight jump, for instance, moving the f6 knight away.
Right. So I guess for white, what Mark is going to be trying to do here is take advantage of the fact that his pieces are a little bit more developed. Maybe he's going to get some attacking chances on the king side here, since he already has a pawn on f5. His bishop's now on g5. His queen is close towards the king. So there might be some interesting threats in the future. But if Romain is able to win back the pawn on f5, then he's going to have a better endgame here.
So true. I think we can go through the next boards as well and see how the other openings are developing. On board 2, it is Sergei Movsesyan from the London Lions facing Mika Braten. It's once again a match, well, it's once again a game where the London Lion player is higher rated, so they should be winning these 2 games that we have mentioned, but it's never that easy. And we love the Pro Chess League because there are so many upsets. So the underdogs perform very well in the Pro Chess League, and this is what I'm hoping to see today as well. So far, it's a really exciting opening. It was a King's Indian defense. It started out as usual, and now I think if we just catch up with the current position instead of going through the whole opening, it makes more sense. G4, what an aggressive move. What do you think of this, Alex?
Well, I'm surprised because Mika is the lower rated player here, so you'd think he'd be trying to play a little bit more structurally sound. That being said, I respect that he's trying to go for attack. I do like moves like g4, but I'm less comfortable with them when I've already castled because it's so weakening for his king.
Yeah, I usually don't like to push the pawns in front of my king, but it's because I like to go safe. At the same time, white is gaining lots of space on the king side, and forcing the knight go back to f6 has its advantages. Now bishop f4, developing move, putting a lot of pressure on the d6 backward pawn, which is clearly a target for white. if the knight moves away from d4, we see that this d6 pawn is about to drop. So it's not so easy now for black to develop his pieces because of the less space he has. He's trying to regroup his pieces, knight fd7, heading toward e5 with the knight. It's logical, but it's taking time, and we still have the c8 bishop and the a8 rook undeveloped on the back rank.
Right. And I was just quickly taking a look at Mika Brayton here. It seems like this is his first matchup of the season, so we don't have any stats on him as a fourth board until now. So we'll see if he's the kind of player who's able to make upsets here, and that's definitely what he's trying to go for right out of the bat with his first game.
Definitely. In the chat, there's a question about Simon Williams, if he's on the team of the London Lions. No, he isn't, unfortunately. But of course, we all love Ginger GM and his streams, and Harry the H Pawn, who is world famous by now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he did make that very popular, and it's a great way, I think, to teach chess, especially, because it makes it more fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. We should all have names for the pawns. Shall we have a look at board 3 and board 4 as well?
Yeah, let's take a look at those. I'm looking at the game between International Master Peter Robertson and Grandmaster Sergei Ehrenberg. I think
this is now where the Pittsburgh pawn grabbers are higher rated. So on the bottom two boards for the Lions, these are board 2 and board 1 of the pawn grabbers. With the back pieces, Grandmaster Ehrenberg, and after c3. This is an interesting middle game. I was looking at the opening just briefly. It was a Caro-Kann defense, the two knights variation, where black gives up a bishop, but the pawn structure for black is very solid. So even this middle game we see is a pair of bishops for white, which I usually love. I love having the pair of bishops. I don't know about you, Alex, but I'm a fan of the pair of bishops, huge fan. But it's not always easy to make those bishops active, especially when the position is so close as this one. So it's a close position. c3 is an attempt to open up the position, which is what white should be doing, opening now the c file, also breaking in the center. White would love to push f4, but that f4 square is really well controlled. As we can see, black is controlling it with 3 pieces, making sure that f4, f5, and f4, e5 is not coming anytime soon.
Right. And so these are the Pittsburgh pawn grabbers, and I'm thinking whether or not it's possible for black to just take on g3 right away. We see that the knight is attacked twice here. White's only defending it with the pawn. Obviously, black needs to be careful to not trap his queen on g3, but because the f4 pawn is so protected by both the knight and the queen, maybe black can just take without consequences.
Yes, it's true that c3 is a pawn sacrifice. White is offering this pawn. I believe that Robertson's reasoning is that since he has already castled and the black king is still in the middle of the board, he's confident that he would have counterplay and compensation for the material. So bishop takes g3, f takes g3, queen takes g3. White has a semi-open f-file, and the black king still hasn't castled. But I think you have a point here, Alex, that I don't see anything concrete in that position why black should not take this pawn.
Yeah, I do see why white might be able to have counterplay, but a lot of times in the opening when a free pawn is offered, I'd like to see if it's poisoned or not, or maybe it's more a gambit-like position where black can take in exchange for some problems.
I'm a pawn grabber, so I've just used my free stuff emote in the chat because I would definitely take that pawn.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. Why don't we also take a look at the fourth board?
Yeah, let's do that so that we cover the entire match. And in the meantime, Ehrenberg has taken on g3, so he is a true pawn grabber. True pawn grabber.
There we go. Bishop takes g3, f takes g3, queen takes g3, c takes d4, c takes d4. All right, so yeah, black is a little bit more opened up now. The c file is going to be open as well. So black obviously is going to castle on the king side or not castle at all. I'm curious to see if Robertson is going to get any counterplay here. But like you said...
I think we should go back to that game often. And in the meantime, on board 4, we have one of the few female players in today's division in the Atlantic, Katarzyna Toma, with the white pieces playing for the London Lions. And I think more and more teams should have female players because, well, first of all, it's cool to have female players. Secondly, it's an advantage with the rating cap. Every team should have a rating cap below 2,500. 2,500 is the rating average. that the 4 players can have max. It has to be below 2,500. But with a female player, it changes 100 rating points in favor of the team that has a female player. So I think it's a great idea by Greg Shahari, one of the few good ideas that he has had in his life. But no,
I'm going to take some water to cool down after that burn, Anna.
Let's talk about the position now that there was a queen trade on e7 and the knight coming back to f3. I do think that black is very comfortable. It's the top board of the pawn grabbers versus board 4 of the lions. And bishop g4, I do like when black can destroy white's pawn chain with bishop takes f3, g takes f3. It may not be the right moment though, because white can get rid of the doubled pawns with f4. So bishop takes, g takes, and next move white would push f4.
Right. So I like that black was able to trade the queen as fast as possible, because it seemed, if you go back on move 20, when white played queen takes f6, that black was under a little bit of trouble with his queen pointing towards the king, the knight so nearby. So black quickly traded queens off to remove the pressure. And Anna, what do you think white's chances are going into this endgame? What should Katarina try to do here?
I think with the move knight e2, she's trying to prepare d4, which would be great to play if she can manage. But with the bishop takes f3 capture always in the air, and black being very comfortable, I think I would take black. And yeah, d5. I was thinking whether d5 or f5, but some pawn push in the center immediately, just so that black takes the initiative. Enough e takes d5, knight takes d5. All the black pieces are really active. All he needs to do is bring the a8 rook as well, potentially to the d5.
Yeah.
h3, provoking bishop takes f3. Well, I still like a lot black's position. For instance, now if he just brings the rook to the d5, he's finished development. It's a very sound position for black.
Yeah, I agree. Black is definitely better here. I'm going to quickly flip the board to look at it from black's perspective, because what a change that is. You see how much of a difference it makes to have all your pawns on almost all of your pawns on the 5th rank, pieces ideally placed. The 2 rooks are very well coordinated here. It seems like white is really cramped trying a move like f4 just to be able to bring her knight out.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. Shall we go back to the Robertson game where it was a pawn sacrifice?
Yeah, let's go back.
By the lion playing with the white pieces.
So what happened since we last looked at it was white did indeed play rook ac1 to grab the open file, and black castled kingside, the only safe place for his king.
And this looks just like a very healthy pawn up. White does have the pair of bishops, but he also had it before giving up the pawn.
Right.
So
yeah. I don't know how I feel about that pawn sacrifice.
Yeah, I'm not very confident about this pawn sacrifice. I think black is just doing fine. And it's very important that the c7 square is under control. So even though white has the c5, he can't play rook c7, which would be the move to go to create counterplay, attack on the 7th rank. But it's impossible. So the queen on g3 is actually very well placed. He can also think of knight h4 in the future, attack the g2 bishop, trade on g2, and have a pawn up in the endgame.
Exactly. And here, white could try to double his rooks on the c file so that maybe he could get to c7, something like rook c2 and rook c1. But like you said, black can just try to trade off queens as fast as possible and simplify into a better endgame.
Yes, I think Robertson was a little overconfident with the pawn sacrifice, and this is looking very good for the pawn grabbers. What's going on board one? I was curious. Roman played this really interesting opening line of the knight with e5, f5, and he is still a pawn down, I believe, but he has quite some counterattack going on now on the queen side.
He does have a nice counterattack going on the queen side. I am also a little bit worried about his king position, since if he castles, the g file is totally open for the queen. And what white's trying to do here is open the center, because if white can break over the center, then suddenly black's king doesn't have anywhere to hide behind pawns. So I guess it's a question of whose attack is faster here. Who would you rather play, white or black here?
First, I was thinking, like, I look at this position and I know that Edouard is playing with the black pieces, so I was biased and I was thinking black should be doing fine. But now that I look at it for a second glance, and the central it's not very stable. Now, white is forcing issues, taken on e5 and knight f3. e4 has to be calculated. What happens in this position? It's a fork, but I guess he wants to move the knight so that both queens are hanging.
Right.
Knight d4 or knight e5.
Yep. I just played knight d4. Oh, no, he played knight d4. I was going to try to play a move to show your variation, but he already copied your idea, so too fast.
Yeah. But now this means that we are going to enter an endgame unless black just moves the queen away. But yes, I think first I liked black's position, but now that I'm actually digesting that the black king is still in the middle of the board, the position is opening up even more. And there's this really nicely placed knight now on d4. The f5 pawn is still alive. I actually think that white is doing just fine.
Right.
What about you, Alex? What would you pick here, white or black?
I would also pick white, not just because you gave very good reasons, but because it does look like white is going to be able to enter an endgame, a pawn up. And yeah. I just think if black tries to keep the queens on the board with something like queen b6, well, white can just force trade with queen b5 anyways.
Yeah, totally. So after queen b6 or queen c5, which was just played, queen b5 is one of the options that white should consider, trading queens. And yes, black has the pair of bishops, but after queen b5, queen takes, knight takes, white is threatening knight c7, so there's no time for bishop takes f5 winning the pawn back.
Right.
Bishop d7, but now queen takes, bishop takes.
Okay, and queen take, this was exactly what was played.
Yeah. So in this position, knight to b3 to defend the d4 knight is a logical move. I wonder, well, it's logical, but now after bishop b6, this b3 knight I don't like actually, because a4, if it's black to move, he's gonna push a4, and the knight can only go to a1 so that the d4 knight is not hanging. Now that would be a disaster.
On the bright side, it was white's turn to move. So what he played with knight a6 makes a lot of sense, because now he's making space for his other knight to come on d4. Although the white pawn on e6 looks like it's going to be very weak if bishop takes e6 and then pawn takes e6.
I completely agree with you. That's something that has to be calculated. Bishop takes, e6, f takes, and he has just played rook d8, defending the d5 pawn. And next move, black can simply play king e7 to attack the e6 pawn. As Alex has pointed it out, it's a very weak pawn on e6. So it does look like black is doing more than fine if he gets the pawn back and he has this e4 protected passed pawn.
Yeah, I mean, we like pass pawns, but normally when you have a pass pawn, there's not another pawn on the same file. This is a little bit of a weird position.
Yeah, and shout out to Larry Gotham Chess, who is here with us in the chat, and he has done an amazing job covering the other divisions of the Pro Chess League, and he is also running his highlight show. So shout out to the one and only Gotham Chess, and all the great things he does here on Twitch. Make sure to follow his channel and subscribe if you like what Levi does.
Oh my gosh, there's a king on g3 on the second board, so I just switched over. Okay, Mika Breton, it's his first game with the Pittsburgh Pawn Grabbers. He wants to be a star. He wants us to have some eyes on him. So naturally, this is the kind of position he's playing for.
I can see that he wants to impress our Twitch community. He wants to make a good debut. King g3 is definitely not something we see often in the middle game with pieces all over the board. So yeah, definitely active king is a term in endgames, but he's making it a middle game concept.
Which I don't know if I believe, because it seems like black is ready to create a couple of exchanges, which is important because these pawns, even though they're attacking black's king side, were also defending the white king on g3.
Yeah, and now there has been a trade on g5, but that opens up the h file.
Right.
So if white could bring the rook, either both rooks or a rook and a queen to the h file, that would be, of course, a dream attack. I think it's a bit of slow motion, rook h1 and then try to double, because black is also going to make moves. And he has the semi-open f file and e files to try to attack. I wonder if there could be any time knight takes g5 or knight, yeah, some knight sacrifice so that you open up the position and start attacking the g3 king. Like knight takes g5 is such a tempting move.
It is really tempting. After f takes g5, queen takes g5, I'm guessing is how you'd continue here. White retreats to f2, and this looks very scary for white. I mean, I don't see an immediate way that black can checkmate or gain back material, but I do feel like if he's able to bring his rook on f8, maybe double up, activate the rook on a8 as well, he should be able to at least grab another pawn and have a huge advantage here since white's king is so exposed.
Yes, I think at some point we will see a sacrifice in this game. I'm not sure if he has to take it right now. That's certainly something he's calculating. If not right now, knight takes g5, then I'm pretty confident that he will try to prepare this capture on g5 or a way to get close to the g3 king. He has pushed c5, which makes sense, chasing the knight away, although it gives up the b5 square. So knight b5 is one of the options for white.
Yep.
Knight c2 I think is a bit too passive. I was expecting knight b5 to at least force black to take on b5 with the bishop. Now after bishop c6, the e4 pawn is about to drop.
Yeah.
Is there a way? Is there a way to defend it?
Well, so there's no way to defend it since the only way would be with the queen, and then black can still take. What happens after e5? Again, it just falls, d takes e5, it's a free pawn, and then g5 falls as well if he takes back on e5. So I would say this is looking pretty bad for our pawn, our Evan the e pawn. Can we do that? Can we give all the pawns names?
Yeah, it's a possibility, but yeah, the g3 king, it has been a very brave piece, but I think it's getting into trouble now that the pawn structure of white is about to collapse, and with that the king. So I think Movsesyan is on his way to convert this into a full point for the lions, which means that I think we should look at board 3 and 4 as well. If pawn grabbers will manage to score on those boards where they have board 1 and board 2 facing board 3 and board 4 of the lions.
Yep, good call. So let's see. Ooh. So black is still up a pawn here. We were looking at the position earlier. He now has the open c file, but in exchange, white is trying to attack on the king side here. So if the attack works, then maybe he has a chance, but otherwise it looks like this should be a win, or at least a much better position for the Pittsburgh pawn grabbers.
Certainly. g5 now to chase the knight away from f6 and then capture the pawn on f7 makes a lot of sense, but the g5 pawn as well will be in the air if black takes on g5 once and then plays knight h7 to attack the pawn.
Yep.
So then I really think that black is still doing very fine here.
Right.
More than fine. I would consider this a winning advantage if there's nothing concrete for white, which I don't see. Rook takes f7, knight takes g5, and I don't think white has a follow-up because this queen on e5 is very well placed, a central queen, covers all sorts of critical squares around the black king and also attacks the white king at the same time. So I think that Ehrenburg is going to equal the score. If we see that Movsesyan is about to win, Ehrenburg will equal the score for the pawn grabbers. And we have a result in the meantime. Yevgeny has beaten Katarzyna Toma. That is the first score in this match for the pawn grabbers. 1-0.
Oh no, this is such an ugly position. Wherever Katrina moves her rook, either on b3 or b1, she's gonna be met with knight d2 fork emote, as Danny would say.
Yay, fork emote. Let's just use our fork emote. I also want to create a fork knight emote. And fork, that is knight b2. It was all forcing after knight b2 because the d4 knight is hanging, so very good calculation by Postny. Knight c4 and game over.
Oh, I'm actually rewinding a little bit. It looked like this was calculated after b4, knight b2, so forcing the rook away either to b1 or to d2 to try to hold the knight. After rook b1, he just took the knight, took back on b2, and knight c4. So there are those grandmaster tactics, very sneaky and annoying to play against, but he also deserves some credit for seeing that nice calculation.
Definitely, and it's the first point for the pawn grabbers. We shall see if the Lions can equal the score. For the Lions and the pawn grabbers, this match is about trying to win. Well, I'm going to say something smart. It's about trying to win, but I was going to say that both teams are not doing very well so far. This is week 5, and in the previous 4 weeks, both teams have been struggling. So the team that wins this match at least will have a good chance to stay in the Pro Chess League.
Right.
And maybe even qualify. But the team that loses today, I think that's already quite a tough position to be at the bottom of the standings.
And I just pulled up the standings a little bit to show what you're talking about. You can see that the Lions are in 6th place in the Atlantic Division, the Pittsburgh Pawn Grabbers in 7th. So just coming right back to the games now.
Yeah, and already there's a huge gap between the Marshalls and the Lions. So the 5th and 6th place, there is, oh my maths, almost 40 points of difference, which is huge. But it means that if a team loses today, any of the bottom teams, Lions, Pawn Grabbers, or Champions, that's basically it, I think. There are still a couple of weeks left, but such a bad start, I think it's very difficult to actually correct later on.
Yeah. So they're both definitely feeling the pressure. I was currently on the board 1 game where Grandmaster Roman was able to pull off a win here. It looks like the game is almost over because he is going to promote here.
Certainly.
So we can take a look at the other teams that are starting to play, although I think a couple of these games are still going on in the Lion and Pittsburgh division. What would you prefer to look at, Anna? Maybe
we could see the last minutes in this match, since we have been following the games closely, and then we switch to the other match. I see that Movsesian is about to win his game.
Yep.
That Tesla 37, Sergei Movsesian. We saw the moment when he played c5, bishop c6, and then did he sacrifice a piece? Yes, he did take on g5. We were good with our predictions, Alex.
Yes.
The sacrifice happened.
There we go, on move 30.
Wasn't so good.
Right, so Black was able to just sacrifice here in order to take away some of the pawns that were protecting White's king, and it just looked so bad for White here. King F... Yes. Oh, he played king g2 here, okay.
Indeed, so it was still a piece up for White, but with a king that has no protection, no bodyguards, no pawns around, it is unlikely that White can survive.
Yep. And Borani Banjan is asking, are the chess bras not playing right now? Is it one match at a time? So for those of you who are joining in, the matches are staggered so that we could have a chance to look at more of the games. So, you know, there's some separation between when the games start, and they will be starting in about 40 minutes like Crazy Coffee Man says.
Indeed, and we are going to be focusing on that match once it starts. But before that, we have the Pawn Grabbers versus the Lions. A really exciting match. It started with 1-1. Both board 1s have won their first game, and now board 2s and board 3s are trying to make this match a little off balance. So if one of the board 3s manages to score, then already the other team will take the advantage. Am I explaining it well? I don't know, my maths is really bad, but yeah, I hope you get it. So it's all about trying to upset the other players and not always the higher rated player winning the game, because that would be super boring, right? That would be.
And yeah, we're checking out Chess TV chat as well for those of you who are talking on chess.com. So okay, this game was just finished, and I'll take a look at the last game in this matchup as well.
Yeah, I think if we just explain why Black is winning in this position, because it might not be that clear. Queen d4 was the last move and White resigned, because the rook is hanging and Black is also threatening knight e3 check. The king is in trouble. Then rook g5, rook h5, winning the queen, or mate, or both. So this position is completely
right.
hopeless.
I'll just make a rook b1 move so I could show the line you pointed out.
Sure.
Yeah, so after knight e3, if the king plays back to h1, then he's met by rook h5, which pins the queen to the king. Say White plays king f2 here, then Black has a lot of discovery attacks by moving the knight, so he's probably just going to get checkmated at some point here. Knight d1, king g2, bring in the rook check, and it seems like black is going to be able to win material or checkmate him. If he plays king f3, you have queen e3 mate.
Yeah, all sorts of winning lines here. Also discover check, so white resign because of all that. And the remaining game in this match is between Ehrenberg and Robertson. This is the game where white sacrificed the pawn in the opening. And right now it is still a pawn up for black and attack.
Yep.
Knight e5 was the last move, attacking the rook, sacrificing the b7 pawn, but now it's about the white king. Knight f3 check, and then the queen is coming, or queen g5, queen g4. He can decide. But I think if you bring the knight first and then give a queen check, then all the black pieces are attacking.
Right. Queen g3, rook c2. Black just has all of his pieces very coordinated here.
Yeah, it has to be made, I think, after queen g3. Rook c2, white is losing the queen because you cannot keep the king protecting the g3 queen. And if the king moves to h1, then simply queen h3 check. There's a pin on the back rank.
Yeah, this is a nice one.
Yeah, puzzle rush time.
Exactly.
Let's just use some of our puzzle rush emotes in the chat, everyone, for this beautiful mating attack. Puzzle rush time.
There you go. Anna knows how Twitch works. Anna's been doing a lot of commentary, but she hasn't forgotten her love for Twitch chat.
Oh, I love Twitch chat. Shout out to everyone tuning in. We are over 1,164 chess lovers from all over the world. This is the Process League Week 5, and we are writing history with Alexandra being the first female commentary duo on the Process League team.
I think that's true. Well, that's really exciting, Anna. I'm glad to be here with you. And there you go. There are those puzzle rush emotes. Okay.
Oh, look at the colors. I've just used the chess.com one because that was at hand, but I love how everyone is coming up with these colorful messages. That's Gotham Chess, the blue one. Alexandra is the purple one. My one is pink. And red, I believe, is Hikaru because he was the latest puzzle rush emote acclaimer. So yeah, here we go. Yep. This is another match that we are covering, the Miami champions facing the Montclair Sopranos.
Yep. I'm looking at the board one game between Eduardo Iturrizaga and Dan Smith. And for those of you who don't know, Dan Smith was one of the best poker players as well. I think he was top 5 in the world for some time, and he also plays chess. He's also from the Bay Area, the best area. No bias here. So
yeah, no bias.
Yeah, I'm the least biased commentator of all time. Hi, Outgoing.
Oh, I love the Bay Area. I hope that I can visit you, Alex, by the way.
Yes, we're going to plan something.
I'm planning a US tour because you guys should know that this year, too, the Process League finals will be held somewhere. We don't know yet where, but it will be organized as a physical event, and you should plan to visit it. May the 4th and 5th are the dates. Write it in your calendar, block those dates, ask for holidays, take your children out of school, or if you're a child, then just say that you're sick because you gotta be at the Process League finals.
Got it. Amazing. So let me take a quick look at the position here. So it seems like Black has that awkward weakness on d6. That's his biggest problem here. But he also has the bishop pair, both of the bishops which are very active now. He just played knight h5, looking to push and bully White's bishop on f4. What do you think of this position?
Now after bishop g5, queen d7, it's interesting. As you were pointing out, knight h5 to target the bishop. For the moment, well, I was looking at this d6 pawn, that if White can take it, because of course, if that's a good move, then we would love to capture the pawn. But there might be some tactics with bishop takes c3 and the e4 pawn also falling.
Okay.
So then decided to go for bishop g5, not enter the complications.
Yep.
And now plays knight d5, which is quite a logical move. I like it.
I like it as well. And it forced Black to trade off his bishop pair.
Yep.
Although, I think White's best bet here is to take with one of the pawns, which will then also block up the d file, which was being used to put pressure on the weak d6 pawn. So it is a little bit of a trade-off, but at least White still has more space here. So I think he's actually doing pretty well holding his own against a strong GM.
Yes, and if we look at the ratings, so Dan is almost 600 rating points below Iturisaga. It would be really impressive if he can upset his opponent. And I agree with you that taking back on d5 with a pawn would make sense here, even though it changes the pawn structure and the d6 pawn will not be as vulnerable as it used to be. It also makes White's pawn chain healthier.
Right.
So there will be no e4 isolated pawn after he takes d5.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm curious to see how he's going to continue here. I'm going to just hop very fast to the game on their second board between Grandmaster Mohammed and Grandmaster Lenderman. So that's Alexander L. Just because it looks like Black is already putting a lot of pressure on Lenderman here. His knight's on h3, so it's either trapped or he has some type of attack planned.
Wow, what a position. And I'm thinking once again, I'm not the kind of person that loves sacrificing, but I'm looking if he can play knight f4 in the future and bring the queen to g4.
Right.
So if the black queen was on d7, I would definitely think that knight f4 has to be winning, because then you come in with a check on g4 or h3. And that would look very dangerous. It's on e7, so maybe it's not time to sacrifice.
Okay.
Queen d2. Well, that's an interesting move. Does he want to play knight g5 and trade this knight so that he can attack with queen takes g5, put pressure on the f6 pawn and the f5? F6 knight, I was going to say.
It does seem like he is trying to trade off that knight. So maybe he's trying to remove some of the pieces that are already around his king. Although I think another pretty simple plan for Black is to just play rook h5 so that no knight g5, and then bring his rook over and just double it up on the h-file. An open h-file, semi-open by the king. Why not bring more pieces into the attack?
I love your idea. I think rook h5 is a really nice maneuver to activate the a8 rook, and Alex is completely right that we gotta use this open h5, the semi-open file. Look at this! Rook
Predictions!
Prediction game won by Alexandra, both heads, rook h5.
Now we just need to see that knight sacrifice and we could say we're both predicting the future here, you know?
Yeah, and then people will start calling us witches, but it's okay.
That could be a little fun. You know?
We have these powers.
Yes, exactly.
Rook h5.
So I'm trying to think of what White should do here, because White can either try to be very defensive here or try to create some type of counterplay, since Lenderman also has an open b-file. What kind of plan do you think he should go for here?
I don't like White's position. I would struggle to come up with something. He does have the open b5, but it's nothing going on there.
Yeah.
Maybe if we could in time play queen b2, queen b7 to trade the queens, that would be great.
Oh,
but it takes 2 moves, and I think that's too slow in this position.
Yep. Okay, so he just played rook b2, which makes sense because he's putting another piece on the second rank, so potentially going to be able to protect a little bit more, but also if he ever has time to catch his breath, he could double the rooks on the b-file.
Yeah, totally. I'm expecting now Alexandra's idea of just bringing the other rook over to the h5.
Right.
Unless there's something concrete, but yeah, I'm still looking at f4 and such. But I think you need to bring all your pieces first.
Yep.
So we bring all the toys to the nursery. It was one of the chapters in a book that I love by Jakob Agard. To bring, I think.
He's such a great chess coach. Yeah.
Yeah, I love his books. Shout out to Jakob Agard if he's watching. And if not, just check out his books, because, yeah, he does come up with these funny chapter titles. And it makes you actually, I think, remember the concepts better, because it's so funny, like bring all your toys to the nursery. Right. Like what?
Yeah, I mean, actually, they've done educational studies, and when you're able to combine humor in it, you actually tend to remember things better. So that seems like the kind of strategy he's trying to do there.
Yeah, his books are definitely very recommendable. And rook a to h8 is on the board, and the other knight joining the attack. This looks like it's going to be a puzzle rush moment after knight g4, because there's so much pressure on the h2 pawn already.
Right.
It could be sacrificed.
Yep. So I guess we can come back to this game and see how he continues out his attack. Maybe we should take a look at the third board here between Grandmaster Sam Sevian and International Master Alexander Katz. This one is looking pretty interesting as well.
Yes, I was looking at this e3 knight, whether it's a good piece or a bad piece, but in any case, black can always take on f1 if something is going on. Like right now, it is hanging, and the question is, do you want to take the bishop on f1, or can black simply play queen e7 or queen e6 to defend the knight?
Right. Yeah, I'm taking another look at this position, and it does seem like it's a little harder to play for white, since despite having a pawn on the center on d4, his bishops are very defensive. White has this really strong knight. He has that pawn overextended on a5 that might become a weakness later on. And black has total control and domination over the open and semi-open files here.
Yeah, I think I also like black's position more for all the reasons that Alexandra has listed. So if black can keep this pressure,
and I'm going to flip it to black's point of view, perhaps by not taking on...
Yeah.
Okay.
The only question is, if after queen e7 or queen e6, will there be any trouble with the e file if white moves the knight away from e2? There's a pin on the e file, so that is something to calculate. But
where can the knight move, though?
Indeed, yeah, I was going to say, like, this is in theory, like if you move the knight away, but in practice, the knight has no squares.
Yeah. Oh, that's the problem with being so cramped here. There should be some tricks on this type of file, but Katz is really struggling to develop his pieces here.
Yeah. At the same time, black decided that he didn't want to step into the e file and plays knight d5. That gives some breathing space for white. Now the bishop could be developed, the c1 bishop.
Maybe to b2. I mean, it's not the most powerful looking square in the history of bishop positions, but it's an improvement from c1, and at least, you know, it connects the rooks.
It is an improvement. Yeah, sometimes you gotta play the move you have at your disposal. So it's queen f3. I doubt that white can just spare all these tempi and not develop these pieces.
I think I liked your suggestion better here, because I don't see where white is continuing with f3.
The thing is, queen f3 is not even a threat. He's not threatening to take the knight because there's bishop h2 winning the queen on d5. But black defends the knight.
Maybe black is just re-maneuvering his queen so that he can support some type of pawn push like f4 in the future. Even though it's already protected here, it does make sense that he might be just bringing his queen closer towards the king for a future attack.
Yeah, probably he just wants to push f4, and for that he needed to defend the d5 knight. It still feels like black is doing very well here. Shall we check board 4?
Sure.
So that's board 1 of the Sopranos versus board 4 of the Champions.
Okay, I'm at this game, so...
Oh, an endgame. I love it.
Your favorite. Yeah, Anna's an endgame pro, so be ready to take notes, chat.
This is looking very good for white for the reason that it's bishop versus knight. And first of all, like, what is the knight doing on h2? Second, in positions where there's action on both flanks, and here you see that white is pushing pawns on the queen side, there are things going on in the center and also on the king side. So in positions like this, the bishop is better because it's a long-range piece. It can attack and control squares on both flanks at the same time, while the knight on h2 is only controlling squares on the king side.
Right.
So it's going to take ages for the h2 knight to come back and try to block the b pass pawn after b5.
Yeah, b5 is very fast here, and the knight is such a slow-moving piece compared to the bishop that black is going to be stuck trying to defend that pass pawn with only his rook for a little bit.
Certainly, I think white is going to win this game, but that will be a huge upset if board 4 of the Champions will beat board 1 of the Sopranos.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh wait, although it's still a little bit early, I think that, you know, we know GMs are really tricky, so let's see if Tianqi Wang can hold the position here.
Yeah, it's true. It's too early to claim that white is going to win it, but so far it's looking very good for white. It's becoming now very concrete after f3. And I wonder, well, king e3, knight g4, that saves the piece. So you see that both the rook and the knight are hanging, but if king e3, knight g4 is a check and black is going to take the bishop. But even in a rook endgame, white is going to do very well because his king will be really active on e5. He's about to take the f3 pawn with the rook, and the b5 pawn is becoming a pass pawn once he can push on the queen side.
Yep, it's definitely a position where white has the advantage. Black does have drawing chances since he also has an h-pawn that is passed, so he'll be trying to use that h-pawn to distract the white rook from helping the b-pawn promote. But if anybody has winning chances, it should be white here.
Yeah, I completely agree with Alexandra. King e3 is on the board. We're going to see knight g4 check. King coming to, well, f4 should be the move, because if king e4, rook e6 pins the bishop.
Right.
Maybe still that could be okay, but why to enter a complication?
He heard your suggestion, you know, somehow telepathically he played king f4. We're seeing a clean endgame. You do not simply play a bad endgame in front of the queen of endgames, you know. It's not how you keep your reputation here.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, but I do need to take lessons from Alexandra in bullet chess, because I'm just really bad at it, and she is the queen of bullet chess.
Well, I hope we're going to see some time pressure here. Actually, we do have a game where the first board, Dan Smith is close to a minute on his clock. Oh, we liked his position earlier, but now Black has this pass pawn on b4, which is a little scary, but white is looking towards the h6 pawn, so maybe he can try to create some counterplay here. And he does have the d5 pawn. It's just harder to promote the d5 pawn than the b pawn, since Black's queen and bishop are helping support all of the squares where the pawn needs to go to promote.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle game he lost the pawn, so it's a pawn up for Black. But I agree with Alex that white is trying to create compensation for it with the queen on the 7th rank. And if he could play bishop takes h6, he has played it. The question is, does he have time to create some attack, or simply the b pawn will promote?
Right.
b3, b2 is very quick.
Yeah, what does white play after b3?
Knight f6 was played instead. The queen and the pawn are hanging at the same time, so it's gonna be now once again a pawn up for Black. He's saying that he can push the b pawn later. Maybe this is safer. It doesn't require extra calculation. b3, rook takes c1, b2, what's happening in that position.
Yeah.
I still think that the pawn was about to promote, but Iturisaga is a very strong grandmaster, so I'm sure that he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it makes sense that he's just removing any counterplay white might have and then continuing with his winning idea of just promoting the b pawn.
Yeah, it also activates the knight, because on h5, of course, it wasn't a very nicely placed piece. You don't want your knights on the rim of the board.
Right.
So now after knight f6, queen c6, he can simply take on d5 with the knight.
Yep.
Or the queen if he wants to.
So many nice options for Black here. Oh, interesting. We have a result on the second board. Alexander Lenderman and Grandmaster Mohammed just drew, which I think is, based on the position, a good result for Lenderman, since he was under a lot of pressure in the attack earlier, if we go back to where he had his rooks on the h-file. But in terms of rating, it is an upset for Black, especially when you get a draw as a lower rated player.
Yeah, I'm just puzzled by looking at the position where they agreed to a draw. It's a pawn up for Black, and he's got a monster on f4.
Sorry, let me catch up with you there. Yeah.
I would definitely not offer a draw here.
Yeah, this looks much better for Black, although he did have less than a minute to 6 minutes. And it does look a little bit tricky because the white rook is on the open b file, is looking towards b6.
Yeah, I guess he was afraid that the white rook would be entering the position now with rook b6, attacking both the a6 and d6 pawns, but I don't think that white has the time for it, because rook h3 is also a threat. If you move the knight, then rook takes a3, defends the a6 pawn, and threatens back rank mate. I think this position is just a winning advantage for Black, because it's an extra pawn and better pieces.
Yep, you're right.
And he offered a draw here. Wow.
I guess he took it out of fear.
Yeah, it must be the typical case where you have a stronger opponent, higher rated opponent, so you respect your opponent sometimes a bit too much.
Yep.
You should always respect your opponents, but don't give too much credit to an opponent just because his rating is higher. So the position, objectively speaking, should be much better for Black.
That's true. The only other explanation I was thinking was the time pressure, but Yeah, maybe he should have fought on here. And the other position we were looking at closely just simplified into a drawn rook endgame between their board 4 and their board 1. So this would be a good result for the Miami champions.
Certainly. And at the same time, the third match is about to begin between the St. Louis Archbishops and the New York Marshals. We are going to be looking at those games too, because none other than the world number 2 world champion challenger Fabiano Caruana is playing. He has just started the game. He's playing my favorite opening.
The French. It's my favorite opening as well. So defense.
Yay! Finally, I have a co-host that actually appreciates the beauty of the French defense instead of going with all the...
I'm tired of French shaming. No more of that, or we will time you guys out. Just kidding. Well,
totally. Only love for the French defense. And it has been a sideline. White goes for B3, which is an interesting sideline because Guangzhou rated 600 rating points below Fabiano with his 2,200. It's impressive that there's 600 points between the two players.
Right.
He decided that he doesn't want to test Fabiano in opening theory.
No, he's like, I'm going to play a sideline. You know you're French. Let's just get out of the opening. Maybe if I trade queens, I'll be a little bit more comfortable playing against one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, that must be his reasoning. But I love Black's position because it's a French defense where we don't really have any problems with having less space. The C8 bishop can also be developed in the future. So it's a kind of a not so typical French position where Black is not having any troubles.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, no more weak light squared bishop, a staple of the French defense. And what will be fun to see here is how Fabiano fights for a win here and what would be a seemingly equal looking position for most people. I mean, White doesn't have any pawn weaknesses. White's going to develop pretty soon. Queens are off the board. I'm really curious to see how he's going to try and get a win here.
Yeah, I think this is always a question when there's such a big difference between the two players. What happens if White plays just really solid and all he wants is to achieve a draw? So he doesn't take much risk, but he's also not weakening his position, and it is Black who has to try to create an imbalance in the position in order to try to play for a win.
Right. So yeah, Dan Smith lost his game against Grandmaster Turizaga. And so I'll just
started very well. We thought that Dan had good chances after the opening, but then Iturisaga won a pawn, and eventually this B-pass pawn won the game.
Yep, and the other game between Alexander Katz and Sam Sevian also ended in a win for Sam Sevian. And we saw that he had a really nice position and White was really cramped. So this result also wasn't surprising.
I think we can just show the final moves in the game between Katz and Sevian because it's puzzle rush time. It was already a queen up, queen for a rook and a minor piece. But the attack on the g5 was crushing and it's in the end.
Yep. After knight e3, bringing yet another piece to put pressure on the g2 knight. White couldn't do anything. Rook g4 obviously didn't work, so he just made one more move for fun, and then rook takes g2 resigned.
Yeah.
And the other game was a draw between Tianqi and Gushinov, which is a great result for Tianqi Wang, even though he had a better endgame. The rating difference is like almost 400 points, so good for them.
Yeah, I believe he must have had winning chances, but in the end, as you said, even a draw is a good result and very good for the team, because as long as the players with higher rating cannot win, so that is your players with lower rating are scoring, it means that you are upsetting the match result.
Yes, exactly. And I also like what Fallen Coder said in the chat. Fabi's thinking, don't think that trading queens is going to save you from me. That's perfect line.
Totally. I think we can have a look at Fabiano's game again, because this is going to be really instructive how to outplay your opponent from an equal position where the queens are off of the board. There's nothing crazy going on. So all the Fabiano has done so far was to push f6, place his king on f7. He's saying that he does not need to castle because the king is just safe enough on f7.
Right. And
then he went for the knight maneuver, knight e7, knight f5, which I love.
Yeah. He changed his pawn structure very fast by creating that pawn chain with b7, c6, and d5. And he also is remaneuvering his knight to a square that it's more active on.
Indeed. And after c6, the d5 pawn is well protected, and the g2 bishop is not as active as it could be. So it's about making the opponent's pieces less powerful and at the same time strengthening his own pawn chain.
Right. So after knight f5, white continued with rook de1, bishop c5. That's a great place to put his bishop. It has a lot of control. Oh, and Crazy Coffee Man is saying we have Man Bunovich in the chat with us from the New York Marshals. Well,
shout out to Membanovich. I think we know Membanovich from Alexandra's stream. Of course, who would not know Membanovich?
I also had a bun at that time, so it was great. We were bun bros.
Bun bros.
Yeah, let's go
Bun
with that.
bro is not playing today, I believe, but he's rooting for his teammates. So it's good to have you here with us.
Yes. So what do you think of the move h5?
h5. Oh, well, we thought that white was going to go just solid, try to make a draw against world number 2.
Exactly.
He says, well, maybe I should be doing something. And I think it's a better strategy, actually. If you want to make a draw against the higher rated opponent, you should play for a win and make the best moves you can find. Otherwise, you will never achieve a draw.
That's fair. The only question I have here is h5. Obviously, he has to be thinking about h6, g4 at some point here. I don't know if this was the best way for white to try and break the position here.
Yeah, I think he might have been afraid of black pushing h5 and creating this f5 knight outpost so that white can never really push g4. So it could be a prophylactic move to prevent black from just making everything very fixed on the king side and having a nice post for the knight. I think in itself it's not a bad idea, but yeah, it's not easy to come up with the next move because h6, as Alexandra has pointed out, is a square that black controls. G4 could be a move that white considers. And
then I guess he would, after g4, forcing Caruana to play back on h6, and all of a sudden, yes, his knight is less developed, but g4 is a bit of a target, and if he tries to protect it with f3, all of a sudden the e3 square is a little bit more weak, and black can try to double up on the e file and break open on the king side later.
Yeah, definitely. That's a way to go. And of course, shout out to 1,400 of you. We're almost 1,400 chess friends from all around the world tuning in for the Pro Chess League Week 5. This is the Atlantic Division, and Alexandra and I are really excited to be covering this division because, well, first of all, it is a historic stream. I'm going to be highlighting this from time to time that it has never happened on a big broadcast that there was a dual female commentary.
Yeah, so very happy to be here.
Hashtag chess friends. Yeah, the real Greco, that is indeed the hashtag to use. Last time I saw Alexandra, we went to Bigfoot's streamer meetup in the Netherlands, and then we had a mini holiday in Barcelona, and I'm still missing those times with Alex.
Yeah, the chess community is very tightly knit, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I still cannot skateboard though because Alexandra was trying to teach me to skateboard. I have a penny board thanks to Alexandra.
You do, yes. But you were getting pretty coordinated very quickly, so I'm sure with a couple more hours you'd be a pro.
I need Alex. I need more lessons in San Francisco.
We will definitely do that for the Pro Chess League or wherever the finals are going to be hosted.
Yeah. In the meantime, Fabiano has reached an endgame. I think this is going to be really instructive because, once again, you might think that this is a boring position. It's quite symmetrical, same pieces for both. And also, there's no real pawn break except for f5. So f5 would be the only way for black to try to exchange pawns and create more space for his pieces. g4 is an attempt to control black's pieces, but it gives up the f4 square, and Fabiano takes advantage of it immediately, goes for knight e6, attacking the d4 pawn. It's protected for now, but it's good to put pressure on it, and the f4 square is a target. That's where he's heading.
Right, and again, I like what Fabiano's plan is here, but I do think we're all very biased because obviously, you know, number 2, number 3 ranked player in the world. For most games, if we would have seen a position like this, we'd say most likely this is going to be a draw. I mean, it's still not clear how black is winning, but we're just so excited to see how he's going to take a small advantage and snowball it into a winning game.
Yeah, I think Alex is right that we are biased, and maybe it's going to end in a draw, and then I'm like, where's the hype? This is such an instructive endgame. So far, Guangzhou is doing a great job holding the board number 2.
He is.
Credit to the player of the marshals, board 4 of the marshals facing board 1 of the archbishops.
Shout out to our lovely mod, Crazy Coffee Man, who loves the New York Marshals. And let's give the rest of their team some love as well. We'll be back with this Fabiano. I love it. Whatever. Fabiano. That's not what I meant to do. Okay, let's go to the game between... Oh, sorry. I went to the wrong game. Let's find the board 2 for the New York Marshals.
Yeah, that's Wesley So. You want a board 2 of the Marshals or board 2 of the Archbishops? Because Wesley
of the Archbishops, yeah.
Wesley So is on board 2 of the Archbishops facing real boy, that is Hamrakulov Jurabek.
There we go.
Another grandmaster. It's a 250 point rating difference, even though both players are GMs.
Yep. So it's kind of like the GM, Super GM, which is not a real title, but we talk about it a lot. Difference here. So once again, the pawns are equal, but Wesley So does have a better position because he was able to get his rook onto the 2nd rank, which is really important for endgames. You control a lot of White's position here. He was pinning the knight to the rook. He's putting pressure on a3, so he's going to grab that extra pawn, and then he's going to have to convert the extra pass pawn into a win.
Yeah, and I think knight e7 was a really instructive move. The a3 pawn was already hanging, so black could have just taken the pawn in that moment, but instead he plays knight e7, threatening knight d5, attacking both the c3 and the f4 pawns, and threatening knight e3 fork knight.
Right.
So lots of threats on the board. He's just improving the knight, and he can take the a3 pawn any moment.
Exactly.
Because the knight is pinned.
It reminds me of what my coach used to say, which was when you see a good move, look for a better one, and that's exactly what Wesley did here. Could have taken a free pawn, or he could have activated his piece and moved it to a better position and still get the same material advantage.
Yeah, I think that's a very good advice that you should always look for a better move. And shout out to all 3,268 of you tuning in. This is the Pro Chess League Week 5 broadcast of the Atlantic Division with Alexandra and me. Welcome everyone. This is chess at its best, rapid chess with the best players in the world. Today we have Fabiano Caruana, world number 2 world champion challenger, playing for the St. Louis Archbishops, and the Twitch favorite Chess Bros are about to start their match against the leaders, Webster Windmills.
Yeah, so let's see some Chess Bra fans in the chat. It's funny, actually. The Chess Bras are getting pretty popular in the area where I live and also around Stanford University. So some students are texting me. They're like, hey, do you know the Chess Bras? I was like, ooh, wow, chess players getting famous. What's up? Yep.
I love it. I think they do deserve it. The Chess Bros are doing an amazing job here on Twitch. They were one of the first, if not the very first, big Twitch streamers, chess streamers here. So they definitely deserve all the love. Shout out to Eric, Aman, Robin, Yasser, and all the crew at the Chess Bros.
What about Windmill fans? Well, you guys can comment as well.
The Windmill fans.
All right. So I went back to the Caruana game quickly just because you were bringing him up. I mean, yes, I like his position a little bit better because White obviously has the 2 isolated pawns. maybe he'll be able to win the c5 pawn, but it's still a difficult position. But he's grinding Grant on the board and on the clock, so I'm sure he's going to use that time pressure to his advantage later on.
Yes, I think here the biggest advantage he has is what we can see on the clock. It's up 7 minutes for Black, which is amazing. He has only used 3 minutes. We start with 15 minutes, and there's a 5-second increment per move. But wow, Fabiano has made 34 moves with barely using any time.
Yeah. He did know this. I mean, he knew the opening very well, and he was familiar with what type of positional play he needs to get, so he was able to move very quickly.
This endgame, though, is still looking very cool.
So let's leave for a second and see some other teammates and wait for them to make it interesting and be like, ah, yes, of course, that's how he should have continued. Haha.
Indeed.
Okay.
So board 3 between the win. Actually, no, wait a second. We were looking at Wesley. Yeah. So Wesley was board 2 of the bishops, and on board 3 it's Hans Niemann versus Sergei Azarov, board 2 of the marshals. Mentioning this match, by the way, the New York Marshals have tweeted about this match, and they said, on Wednesday, we will finally settle the age-old question, knights or bishops?
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah, I loved it. And as you can see, the logos, St. Louis Archbishops, obviously a bishop, and the Marshals have this beautiful red knight as a logo.
Right. Well, speaking of knights versus bishops, they actually don't have any imbalance on that end. They both have 2 knights and a bishop. It's a little bit... I mean, White's bishop is definitely better placed here because he's on a fianchetto position. He controls a longer diagonal, whereas Black's bishop is on f8 here. So it's taking more of a defensive role and putting pressure on the c5 square, which is still as important. But I would say that the New York Marshals are not doing the best job with the bishops yet.
Yeah, not yet. Maybe in the future, or maybe they would just want to prove that the knights are better pieces in any position.
Right.
Queen a8 now, it was a must, of course, to move the queen of a8. Didn't have many squares available, so yeah, I was considering whether he can move it somewhere else. Queen a8 is not usually where you want the queen, but well.
I mean, knight c6 obviously looks like a very juicy square for the knight, right? Because it's just taking advantage of the space that he has been given. Although I don't know, after knight c6, say rook c8, how would White be able to continue supporting his knight? Oh, I guess b5 actually is falling in this position.
Yeah, good point. That knight c6, and it's on the board. So if Black plays rook c8, the b5 pawn drops. That means he has to try to keep the rook on the b5, rook b6 to attack the knight and defend the pawn.
Right.
And what's going to happen in that position with the knight on c6?
Yeah, this is definitely the correct way for Black to put pressure on the knight because, like you mentioned, he's protecting the b5 square here. White does have some interesting ideas because his queen and bishop are pointing towards the e5 pawn. So at some point, if he takes on d5, he'll be able to get rid of Black's center pawns. It kind of reminds me of a bomb. That's what the e4 pawn is. It's like he's bombing away all of Black's center.
So true. I love the comparison.
Chess bombs, you know, it works. Okay.
Yeah. I'm curious how this game will follow. Rook b6 is on the board, so we shall see what is White's
I want to see the center pawn bomb. That's what I'm here to see. We want some action.
I think it's going to be a center pawn bomb. Yeah. He's got to take.
Oh my gosh. Micro said Fabiano's game has less action than a shuffleboard contest at a retirement home.
Wow.
Water for that burn.
Oh my, well, we did create some hype for Fabiano's game, but it is not as promising as we hoped it would be. It's still an equal endgame, three pawns versus 3 pawns. I'm just looking at it for a moment. And
yes, pawn bomb. It's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, let's go back.
White has infiltrated the center, which is great because now he has that long bishop. His knights are really active. He has a little bit of an awkward position on the queen side, but I think he's going to be able to get an attack. Okay.
So after the capture on d5, knight takes d5, queen f3, there are all sorts of tactical motives. It's puzzle rush time. For instance, if the d5 knight moves away, let's say back to f6, knight e7, check, and the queen on a8 drops.
There we go.
So let's not move the knight away from d5 if black wants to survive, but that means that he would need to defend it with a move like knight 7 to f6, giving up the e5 pawn.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, knight takes e5. He's not down. Oh, yes, he is actually losing a pawn here. Okay, right.
Yeah, I also thought for a moment that it's going to be equal, but there's an a3 pawn, extra pawn for white. And very active pieces. It's not just about this extra pawn, because as you can see, the a3 pawn in itself is not a strong pawn, it's not a passed pawn, but white's pieces are really active. There are all sorts of tactical elements on the king side. I think that this position is looking very nice for Niemann, which would be an upset, but of course this is too early to claim. Oh, rook takes c6, what?
Oh, he actually saved this a little bit.
Did he?
No,
he's going for an end game where he's going to be a pawn down.
Okay, yeah, you're right. He can, although if the bishop takes on e5, a3 is hanging, so he is making it a little bit more difficult, but black's knight doesn't have a lot of squares to go, and white's pieces are still more active. But I think we need to quickly take a look at the Caruana game again.
Sure, because it's so exciting.
Oh, no, just because...
Something is happening.
Something is happening, yeah, okay. Like, a pawn has been dropped, so let's see. Wow.
A pawn was taken on a3.
Okay, this is just a draw. Is Grand Shu gonna get a draw here?
Wow, it's looking like a draw because there are no pieces left. So what's gonna happen, ladies and gentlemen, if white can force black to give up one of the pieces for the g-pawn, that's an automatic draw.
Yes.
But also, even if he doesn't, like knight and bishop versus a bishop, even without the g-pawn, that is a draw. Like, you still have to defend it.
Yeah.
Nobody will accept a draw in that position with a piece up. But, oh wow, this is an amazing result. What a performance by Grand Shu.
Play g7? Yes! Draw!
There it is. There it is. And there should be a handshake, virtual handshake. It's a draw.
Wow.
600 points difference between Fabiano and Grant. And the New York Marshals score an excellent half point.
And this
what
is why
a result!
Nobody should play the French defense.
Oh.
I'm sorry, it was deserved. I love the French, but come on, Caruana, do better. That was disappointing.
Oh my, Alex!
I'm gonna look at this game and
on the same side on what is the French defense, how is the French defense standing in chess theory and oral love for the French defense. But yeah, it wasn't the best game of Fabiano.
I guess it's time for me to book up on the Sicilian. Oh, it feels bad. Okay, wow, that was a great result for Grant. Okay.
Yeah, and shout out to Grandmaster Robert Hess, who is here with us in the chat, and he's going to be commentating on the upcoming division in the Pro Chess League, so you're not missing out on more Bobby and Bagel.
Oh, man.
Crafty Raf saying that the only thing that is good about the French are the croissants. I do love croissants, but the French defense. Oh, Fabi, what have you done?
That's okay. I'll probably still play the French defense. But anyway, I came back quickly to the Hans Niemann and the Sergei Azarov game. We could just take a quick look here. It seems like white is going to maybe grab another pawn on b5. Either way, he's at least one pawn up, so he will be playing for a win here. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go back to Wesley's game?
Yeah, if Hans Niemann wins, that's a great result for the Archbishops. It's an upset. But they did make a draw on board one. That was Fabiano. Yeah, let's see if Wesley, how is Wesley doing?
Well, he at least is up a pawn here. So, you know, he's not following in Fabiano's footsteps and getting a drawing endgame. But
he's a pawn up, but I'm a little skeptical about the winning chances of black because the white pieces are very active. So I was looking at if there's any way of creating a perpetual. Well, it's not perpetual. If knight d8, king f8, knight e6, that could be a way of to make a prepacha, but knight d8, I'm expecting king to g6. So perhaps that was nothing. The knight comes back to f4.
Okay.
White has to take on a5.
Yeah, knight c6 here. So black's putting pressure on d4 and the rook. Obviously, white can save the pawn by protecting it with his rook or just by making a check move. Oh, actually, black can't even take the pawn because then white gets a5, so that's not necessary.
Yeah, okay. True. So Wesley should be converting this. So far, everything is looking good. Still a pawn up, and Wesley has, of course, a really good endgame technique. Shout out to all 4,433 of you tuning in on Twitch, and of course, we are looking at the Chess TV chat as well. So shout out to everyone, whether you're watching from Chess TV or the Twitch platform. We do love you, and thank you for spending your morning, afternoon, or evening with us. This is the Pro Chess League Week 5. Alexander and myself covering the Atlantic Division, and the Chess Bras are about to start their match. So if you're a Chess Bra or Windmills fan, then the match is going to kick out soon.
There you go. So let's see. In this match, the St. Louis Bishops so far, it's just a draw. Okay, right, because Fabiano's game is the only one that finished. Hans is playing for the Bishops. Okay, so that looks like it's going in his favor. And also Wesley's probably going to win this game. So it's... Would you say that most likely the Bishops are winning the first round?
Yes, even though they made a draw on board 1, that is Fabiano making a draw against an opponent that is 600 lower
it's
rated.
Okay. He confused it for the World Championship games, and he was like, we're just going to keep drawing. It's fine. He's giving the audience what they want.
12 draws.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to stop trolling poor Fabiano.
No, Fabiano's, of course. We do love Fabiano, and we get on very well with him. It's just surprising to see such a strong player not being able to win. But it happens in chess. If everyone plays the best moves, it's a draw after all.
Yes, that's true. So let's continue. Is there a game you're looking at that you'd like to go to?
Let me quickly scroll through the other boards in this match between the Marshals and the Archbishops. If there's anything that catches my attention.
So the Chess Bros did start their match, actually.
Oh, then maybe we should go there already.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the game between Grandmaster Ray Robson. So that should be Ray Robson against Sai Krishna Returns.
And that is Sai Krishna, board 4 of the Chess Bros. He's one of the highest rated board 4. So you see that his rating is 2400, and he's a board 4 player.
Yeah.
I think it's important to highlight it because it also means that the Chess Bros, they do have a very strong board 4 player, but that doesn't allow them to have 2600 GMs on the upper boards because you need to have a rating average below 2500. So it's an interesting strategy. The Windmills come up with 3 GMs over 2600.
Exactly.
And a board 4 that is a 1900 versus the Chess Bros who have the same rating on board 1. And on board 2 and board 3, they are underrated in comparison to the Windmills, but they have a very strong board 4. Which one is a better strategy? We shall see.
Yeah, and actually, Sai Krishna, this is his first game in the matchup, and also Nikolai Noritsyn is playing. It's his first round for the Chess Bros. So we do have some new players from the Bra team that we're going to see play.
I see there's some hype in the chat for knight takes f7 as an option here for white.
Okay.
I'm calculating knight takes f7 if it's possible to play it since...
So let's take a look. So knight takes f7.
Yeah. And the knight, of course, is hanging on e4, so white is going to win back the piece. Therefore, it's very logical to capture a pawn first on f7 and then take on e4.
I guess black would logically castle away from the pin here, and then... I mean, the d5 pawn is hanging, the d4 pawn is hanging. This does seem like a really interesting position for white. The only drawback, obviously, is that his pieces are making their own club on the first rank, and they need to develop a little bit faster.
Yeah, there's a party going on the back rank, but he does take on f7, and that means that we're going to see a really exciting position. Queen takes f7, f takes e4, And I think that Alexandra has predicted everything very well, that it should be castle queenside for black. Otherwise, the king is in trouble on the e file.
There we go. This is interesting. This is the kind of game we wanted to see.
Yeah, I'm really curious who is doing better here. So far, it's a mess. You don't usually see double D pawns. Both are about to be captured.
Yeah.
Across the queenside, and then shall white take on d5 or shall he take on d4?
Right, that's a good question. The thing I like about taking on d5, say black castles, is if black ever takes back on c3, then white develops and takes back with the knight. So that would be nice for white to be able to develop a little bit faster. I also don't know what white should take on d5 with, because he can take with the bishop, he can take with a pawn. A bishop on d5 looks really powerful, though.
Yeah, I would love to have a bishop on d5. If white has time for it, that would be great. The question is if after bishop takes d5, is there anything concrete for black? Because of the d file and the queen still being on d1. I'm really curious what this position is. Like, I actually normally I have an intuition that tells me who is doing better, but in this position it's so concrete that I think I just can't look at it and say, okay, white is better, or black is better. No, it's very concrete, and that means you need to calculate, and it's going to depend on one tempo.
Right.
If black is doing okay, or it's white who is just fine.
Well, on the bright side, what we were talking about just happened on the board, so we are going to let the players do their job, and we'll do our commentator job, and maybe check out a game and come back to this one.
Yeah, let's do that, because there are so many boards to cover. So I agree with you that we should switch to board 2.
Okay. Is that the one with International Master Xiam, or is that board 3?
Yeah, Xiam indeed is board 3 of the Chessbrah. So board 2 of the windmills, Alexander Shimanov.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm looking at this game. Oh my gosh, there's games that ended. I'm gonna flash to one game, and then we're gonna come back here, because this is a really nice position where black checkmated white and also got a queen threat. That's the one between Frolic67 and GM Miranda. I just wanted to see that, and you know, at least your day is going better than white's position here. So
yes,
and I'm back to the Chessbrah game.
Definitely. All of you, almost 5,000 of you tuning into the Pro Chess League Week 5. This is the Atlantic Division, and Alexandra is so right. We are all doing way better than white in that terrible position. What a nightmare.
Yeah, it's true. That's like the chess position of feels bad man.
Yeah, it's made and you are dropping the queen at the same time. Like, how often?
Exactly.
You're a piece down to start with. Your queen is dropping and you are mated. It's all happening at the same time. It couldn't be worse.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Oof. Well, so this game is really closed off. The one that you were suggesting we look at. Yeah, it started with the 4 Knights game, so this is what a lot of people actually start playing when they're relatively new to chess, because it has all of the basic principles. Get the center, develop your knights before your bishops, take out your bishops, castle early. So I'm just going to fast forward to the position as it is now. Do you have any thoughts on the position as it is?
I think it's still very balanced, these kind of middle games. I always have, of course, a slight preference for white when I see more space and the knight on d5. That's a very comfortable position. Black, I think, at some point should take this knight because it's a beast if you keep it alive. The knight on d5, knight takes d5. White would take back, I believe, with the c pawn to open up the c file, and then the c7 pawn is a target in the future.
Right. So that actually looks a little bit scary to take the knight right away in that case. Which is probably why he played knight h7, and he has the idea of pushing f5 here, so black's going to be trying to get some type of kingside attack, while white has a pretty dominant queenside and center.
Yeah, a great comment, by the way, from Fallon Coder is that, oh wow, I didn't realize that was an average rating rule. Someone should recruit me so that their board 1 can be stockfish.
That's hilarious. Oh man. Okay, let's see. Oh, Wesley So's game hasn't finished yet, actually. I'm just moving down to it because both players are under 15 seconds. So Real Boy and GMWSO.
Yep, we should definitely catch up with this endgame where
Oh.
Wesley is still a pawn, but it's only one pawn. There's one pawn left on the board. If White can manage to eliminate it, then it's going to be a theoretical draw position. Check on the second rank, king a3. Oh, is there a mating net now with the king on a3?
Right, it looks like he has no space. I think if they both had time, he should be able